My name is Maytham Al-Hilo. At the beginning, I would like to express my gratitude for this great opportunity to speak at the Leicester Secular Society again. A year and a few months ago, I had a previous talk at the society, and it was a great pleasure to meet friends there, and we could get to know each other well. The concept of secularism in Iraqi society has been misunderstood. The term does not mean in the common understanding the positive neutrality of the state toward religions and beliefs. It is and is constantly promoted by the Muslim clerics, and more often the parties of political Islam, equal to the concepts of atheism, which is rather a dangerous concept to deal with in this part of the world. Secularism is often defined as the separation between states and religion in general, without addressing the epistemological basis behind the principle and what makes it urgent and necessary to install them in the modern states. Secularism is a principle of the separation of government institutions and persons mandated to represent the states from religious institutions. One manifestation of secularism is asserting the right to be free from religious rule and teachings, or in a state declared to be neutral on matters of beliefs from the imposition by governments of religion or religious practice upon its people. Another manifestation of secularism is the view that public activities and decisions, especially political ones, should be uninfluenced by religious belief or practice. This understanding of secularism is not necessarily rejected in Iraqi society, especially if the philosophical and epistemological position that lies behind this principle is overlooked. What many people do not notice here is that they live in a modern state since the beginning of the 20th century. This state is dependent on the state of citizenship. The state treats its citizens, at least theoretically and at the level of constitutional decisions, as equal citizens in rights and duties. In the Iraqi constitution, there are a few vague signs for ambiguous purposes and maybe purely for a marketing reasons that do not have a real impact in the legislation. These ambiguous paragraphs include, for example, Islam is the official religion of the state, and also no law may be legislated if it opposes to the basic constants of Islam. At the same time, there is a paragraph stating that no law can be legislated if it opposes to the principles of democracy. These passages may seem to be contradictory at times, but they do not in fact constitute a threat to secularism in practice. The establishment of an official state's religion did not, for example, give Muslims special rights and privileges outside these formalities. Similarly, the constants of Islam is a general concept which is hardly agreed upon by any two teams of different Muslim communities in Iraq. This makes this paragraph of no practical influence, especially in the view of paragraph of democracy. If we consider the most important obstacles to the secular movement in Iraq, we can address a few points. What is related to secular and civil activists, currents and parties, factors related to the prevailing understanding in the society, and finally factors related to the counter agendas of parties and institutions with counter thinking. Most of the people who are classified as secular and civil rights advocates operate alone and are mostly intellectuals, writers, poets, artists and media professionals. Their interest in political affairs is very unsatisfactory. Also, there is a certain level of narcissism prevents the unification of efforts and the emergence of an influential secular movement in the political arena. The parties that adopt a secular view are few in number and suffer from the weight of long history and the bad memories of their role in the political tensions in Iraq. Most Iraqis take a negative attitude to the political parties due to the history of totalitarian parties that ruled Iraq, or at least contributed to its disastrous political history. The insistence of some secularists on the adoption of the pattern of enlightenment that is exactly reproduced from the European experience of enlightenment, and overlooking cultural, historical, objective and subjective differences between the two experiences, has led to the failure of modernization project in Iraq. The demand of the Iraqi people to abandon the sources of deep self and the denial of identity is a bad and a violent pattern of enlightenment which has proven failure repeatedly. On the other hand, we can return to these self-resources and benefit from the translation of their contents in an intellectual context in a manner that is synchronized with the moral and the civilized style of the present era. We can draw from our rich heritage a new and authentic content that does not contradict the human rights code and does not make us live away from the world. The dark areas in histories is the workspace of the extremist religious ideologies, which not only see their identity and their affiliation in the real field, but also rank their duties and attitude toward the world, and often take the form of terrorism. Identity is something that you inherit and cannot justify or defend. It is what makes us what we are, and not who we are, no more. We can only be it, not defend it. This is what the extremists do not understand, or at least claim that they didn't understand. The religious and Salafist parties in Iraq are consolidating a misleading view of secular movements in Iraq. They are trying to convince others that they are calling for a religious state, while they know within them that we live in a post-theocracy state. They are Islamists in a post-Islamic state, exploiting religious emotions and feelings to gain power in a modern state under the constitution of a modern, non-religious state. All the protests in Iraq were calling for a civil state, while the civil state is already achieved in the practical point of view. The Islamist parties in power and through corruption and mismanagement made secularists demand what is essentially achieved. We urgently need to rationalize the discourse, unify efforts, and take advantage of the rights guaranteed constitutionally and legally, to take effective steps to rehabilitate the political process and enable our citizens to fair and just citizenship. This will eliminate all forms of extremism and terrorism and open the way to our proper contribution in a global civilization. Thank you.